Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about dividing, and specifically we're going to talk about long division, which is something that you may or may not have loved back in the day. So let's see what you remember. Let's divide 156 by 12. Another way to write it is 156 divided by 12. When you put that number inside this thing, that number that you're putting inside is called the dividend. The dividend is the number we're dividing into. And the number that's underneath, that's going to go on the outside, is actually called the divisor. So if I was doing long division, if you remember, you would look at the 12, and instead of going into the whole 156, which we may not be able to do in our head, we're just going to do 12 into 15. All right, so I'm going to put like a little imaginary line here to just remind myself. I'm kind of making this question a little smaller because what I'm doing is I'm just going to divide 15 by 12. So you would probably say, how many times does 12 go into 15? What you're really doing is you're really dividing. So you're specifically dividing 15 by 12. And you know that you're going to get 1 point something. So we know that 12 goes into 15 one time. Now, because we did 2 digits here, we're going to do 2 digits here. So we're not going to put the 1 over here. We're going to put it over here. Remember that? Now, the next thing that we would do would be to multiply. Specifically, what would we multiply? We would multiply this number by this number, and we would write it underneath that 15. So when you do 1 times 12, you're going to get 12. 1 times 12 equals 12, and that goes here, right? And then what would we do next? I'm hoping you're going to say subtract. It would do 15 minus 12, and you're going to get 3, which is basically what's left over when you divide 15 by 12. And what would be the last thing we would do? We would bring down the next term, bring down the next number, okay? So we would put a little arrow, bring it down, and then we repeat. So we would divide 36 by 12, which is 3. Then we would multiply 13 times 12, 3 times 12, which is 36. And then we would subtract, and we get 0. And remember what we would do here? We would write an R, and that R is called the remainder. So the remainder of 0 indicates that 12 goes into 156 pretty nicely, and specifically 12 is a factor of 156 and 13 is a factor of 156 because they both go in nicely into that 156. All right, I want you to remember those steps because we're going to revisit them in a second. Now, if you look at number 2 says simplify. Simplify is code word for factor and divide whatever you can out, okay? So can we factor the numerator? I'm hoping you're going to say yes, we can. We're going to do x plus 3 and x plus 2, multiplying to 6 and adding up to 5 in the middle, right? And then the denominator, you just kind of leave it alone. I'm hoping you're going to say we're going to cancel or divide out x plus 2 because x plus 2 divided by itself equals 1. And we end up getting an answer of x plus 3, okay? Now, that answer has a special name. When we divide, the answer is called the quotient. So I'm going to mention that here, and I'm going to mention that that 13 and number 1 was also the quotient. All right, now I want you to remember that for what we're about to see down below. Down below, you see the same question. You're probably thinking, well, we know the answer to this. It was number 2. It was x plus 3. But now I'm going to show you how to use long division, just like we did with number 1, to evaluate this. So again, the number in the terms in the numerator are called the dividend. They go inside this rectangle thing. You could call it a box or whatever you want to call it. And then outside, we're going to put x plus 2. That is called the divisor. Okay? Now, similarly to what we just did above, remember when we did 15 divided by 12? There's 2 terms here, and there's 3 terms here. But we are going to chunk it out by just doing 2 and 2. So all we're going to do first step, which is divide, is instead of doing this whole thing by this thing, we're just going to divide the first term by the first term. What is x squared divided by x? Okay? What is x squared divided by x? I'm hoping you're saying it's x because when you divide, you subtract exponents. So now when you get x or x to the first, instead of putting it above this first term, you're going to move over and put it above the second term because like we did above, remember, we kind of skipped a step here and skipped a space. and we put that 1 over the 15, the 5 and the 15. So similarly here, we're going to put 1x, or just x, over that 5x. All right, what's the next step? I'm hoping you're going to say multiply. So when we multiply, we're going to do what we got up top, x, by this x plus 2, okay? But you have to remember to distribute. So if you're not good at that, you may want to write it on the side here like me. I'm going to get x squared plus 2x. I'm going to put it right here. What's the next step? I'm hoping you're going to say subtract. Divide, multiply, subtract. Divide, multiply, subtract. So when we subtract, we're going to put a minus, but we have to remember that we're going to put a bracket because we are going to subtract this entire quantity, which is a binomial. So you're now going to change all the signs. All right, so please, that's a big, big, big thing I'm going to start that people do wrong is they don't put a bracket and they forget to distribute when they subtract. All right, so let's change all the signs. I'm going to end up getting plus, minus, minus. The x squared minus x squared cancels out, and I'll get 5x minus 2x, which is 3x. And then what's the last step? Bring it down. Remember, we brought down that last number above. So similarly here, we're going to bring down this positive 6. Okay? All right. Now we're going to repeat the steps again. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring it down. So let's do round 2. Divide. What are we going to divide? We're going to specifically divide the first term by the first term. So what is 3x divided by x? I'm hoping you're going to say just 3 because the x's cancel out. It is 3, but we're going to put a plus 3 because we need some kind of operator here in front of the 3. So it's a positive 3. Next step, multiply. When you multiply, you're going to multiply specifically the 3, which we just got above, by this whole thing. Okay? So again, you can either distribute in your head or you can do it on the side. 3 times x plus 2 is 3x plus 6. Put that here. Last step, well, one of the last steps, subtract. So when we subtract, remember, we have to put a minus in front of the whole quantity and a bracket. I'm hoping you're going to say this whole thing is going to equal 0 because we're going to get plus, minus, minus, and everything cancels. And 3x plus 6 minus 3x plus 6 equals 0. So we're done. So that means the remainder is 0. And this means that when we divide x squared plus 5x plus 6 by x plus 2, we're going to get x plus 3. That is called the quotient. Wait a minute, I feel like we knew that already. If you look back to number 2, didn't we say we were going to get a quotient of x plus 3? We did, right? So here's a longer way of doing it. Now, because the remainder is 0, this means that x plus 2 is a factor of the numerator, x squared plus 5x plus 6. Because the remainder was 0, meaning there's no remainder. So the vocabulary that I just discussed with you are the following terms. Dividend is going to be the numerator. That is the term that is being divided into. Numerator of the fraction. The divisor is the denominator. That's the number you are dividing by, or whatever it is, the expression that we are dividing by. The quotient is the answer that is obtained when we do a division problem. A factor is something that divides nicely into a polynomial or a number. And lastly, the remainder is the number or the term that is left over when dividing. So just remember, if there is no remainder, then that means that the thing is a factor, and that means the remainder is 0. All right, so let's go do some problems now. Let's practice. Does blah divided by blah equal blah? Well, this is kind of like a proof like we've been doing. We want to show that this side is equal to this side if this is true or not. So we're going to set up our long division. The dividend is what we're going to put inside this rectangle. That again is the numerator of our fraction. And then the divisor is going to go on the outside. All right. All right. Take it one step at a time. 2 terms, only take 2 terms. Okay. Step 1, divide. Okay. Just divide 2x cubed by 2x. What do we get? I'm hoping you're going to say x squared. Next step, multiply. Remember, it's divide, multiply, subtract, bring it down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring it down. Okay? Multiply this by this. So we have x squared times 2x plus 5, and distribute. 2x cubed plus 5x squared. That goes here. Now, notice, if I'm doing this right, all the terms should line up. So we have the x cubed over the x cubed, and the x squared over the x squared. Now, I'm going to subtract. Step 3 is subtract, but remember to put in your bracket and distribute. So I'm going to change this to plus, minus, minus. Now, cancel. 2x cubed divided by 2x cubed cancels out. The first one should always cancel out. 15x squared minus 5x squared is 10x squared. And now remember, the last step is bring down the next term. So bring down this one. All right, just do 2 at a time. Now let's do it again. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring it down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring it down. Divide. So just take the first term, 10x squared, dividing it by 2x. What do you get? I'm hoping you're going to say 5x to the first. That's going to go right here, but it's a positive 5x, so you need that positive, or else it's just like a naked number, okay? Next thing we're going to do is multiply. So what are we going to multiply? We're going to multiply 5x by this, okay? So again, you could do it in your head, or you can do it on the side and show that you're distributing. 5x times 2x plus 5 is 10x squared plus 25x. So that's going to go here. Again, if you do it right, the x squared should be in line with each other, and the x is in line with each other. Now do the little bracket, and now change the signs, plus, minus, minus. Now we're going to cancel out the 10x squares, and 27x minus 25x is 2x. All right, do it again. Bring it down. Okay, I'm just writing in my steps on the side. Now I'm going to do it again. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring it down. Divide. 2x divided by 2x. Hoping you're saying is 1. It's a positive 1 though, so we got to put a plus in front of it, okay? Now multiply. 1 times 2x plus 5 is 2x plus 5. Subtract. Oh, they're the same, so we're going to end up getting 0. And that's the remainder, and we're done. So our final answer is, for our quotient, x squared plus 5x plus 1. So it says, does this side equal that? And the answer is yes. We have to answer yes or no. Yes, they are equal because we just showed it. Okay, I want you guys to try example 3 on your own. You can do it. You can pause the video here and do it, and then I'm going to show you the answer. All right, so I got my answer. Let's see if you got it. I got 2x plus 5. Did you get 2x plus 5? Remainder 0? I'm hoping you did. And then if you look down below, it says, is x minus 2 a factor? And I'm hoping you're going to say yes. If you didn't do this already, yes. Why? Because x minus 2 has no remainder when being divided into 2x squared plus x minus 7. Okay? No remainder indicates that indeed it is a factor. All right? Nice. Let's move on. I want you guys to look at this one. Last one you're going to hear from me. It says, use long division to find the quotient. Why do you think it says be careful here? Okay, take a look. Why do you think this one says be careful? What could it be? All right, I'm hoping you're saying, oh, wait a minute, there's no x squared term, right? No x squared term. That means there's a missing term. So whenever there is a missing term, basically a polynomial should be in standard form. And standard form means that it should be going in order from x cubed to x squared to x to the first to the constant, which is no x. This one is missing the x squared term. So whenever there's a missing term, you have to insert a 0 placeholder wherever the missing term is, all right? So in this case, there's no x squared term. So we're going to insert a 0x squared in between the 2x cubed and the 51x. So when I write it under the little, whatever this is called, I'm going to write 2x cubed, and then I'm going to put the placeholder 0x squared negative 51x plus 5. The reason why is because I want all my terms to line up nicely when I do this term by term. Okay, so now let's see what happens. 2 terms, 2 terms. Divide. Step 1. 2x cubed divided by x. I'm hoping you're saying it's 2x squared. It's going to go here. 2. Multiply. 2x squared times x minus 5. Distribute. 2x cubed minus 10x squared. Step 3. Subtract. Minus, bracket, and now plus, minus, plus. Change the signs, all right? So we get 10x squared. Last step, bring it down. Bring down the next term. Arrow. All right, now go again. Step 1 again, divide. Hoping you're saying positive 10x. It's 10x, but it's a positive, right? Multiply. 10x times x minus 5. Distribute, right? All right, subtract. Every time, put that bracket in. It's very helpful. So you just automatically get in the habit of doing your distributive property when you subtract, okay? Change all your signs. And bring it down. All right, negative, last round. Divide. I get -1, right? Now multiply. Multiply. -1 times x minus 5. And subtract. Boom, boom, same answer. 0. So our final answer is 2x squared plus 10x minus 1 quotient. All right, my friends, we're done. You can go on and do the rest yourselves. Good luck.